Welcome back, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce CVC Wellness, Christian Van Camp. I found him on Instagram, I think actually just on the Explore page. And I just happened to see one of your reels swing by, and I was like, wow, this guy seems to know quite a lot. He's bringing up scientific reasons for things that I didn't even know of in regards to health, fitness, nutrition, being outside, etc. But I think it'd be a great discussion to get to know him. So tell me, Christian, what started you down this journey of learning about health, fitness, wellness in general, etc.?
Yeah, Harley. I mean, a lot of things, man. It's multifactorial as all of our lives are, multifaceted in many ways. So a lot of it stemmed from without like me, a lot of inspirations with family's health, a lot of compromised health with diabetes, hypertension, anger, with my extension of my family. And, my primary influence, to be honest, in the health and optimization field is really around my little sister, Nina. She had a heart transplant back in March of 2014. And this was due to hypoplastic left heart syndrome. She was basically born with this congenital issue. And it's kind of like basically the left side of your heart with the ventricle is like basically filled up with complete muscle tissue versus adequate blood flow through it. So she kind of had like a 3-chambered heart is a good kind of visualization of it. And over time, I mean, just constantly in and out of the hospital, throughout our childhood, 2 years younger than me. And her heart just started to fail like Christmas Day of 2013. And so she was administered into the hospital with pneumonia and was in the hospital for around 3 months until March. They were just like, she's going to pass away if she doesn't get a new heart. Like, there's no way she's going to survive with this. And over 90% of babies that are born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome don't survive until they get a heart transplant. It's pretty wild. So it's a very rare issue, With all that being said, she had a heart transplant. She's doing wonderful now, a lot better. But just seeing, all the things she had to go through, seeing also just how Western doctors operated, I think it's beautiful. She wouldn't be alive if it weren't for Western medicine. And just having a whole new heart in your chest, like, just think about it. That's crazy. But the way they were feeding her, I saw like this nutrition side of things at a young age. I was like, this is interesting. She's being fed, while being on her bed basically, and just got a heart transplant, being fed a lot of foods that have no nutritional value. Very little things like pastries, applesauce, just things that were not in line with nutrient density for someone that just had this terrible, overwhelming procedure done. A whole heart just pulled out of your chest, and replaced with another one. It's like, that kind of like woke me up to the world of nutrition in many ways. And I started delving into it myself. And, after Nina's heart transplant, I had this issue with constipation for around 5 to 6 days. Went to conventional medicine as well and was prescribed a lot of heavy laxatives, and that was very troubling, and it didn't address the root cause. And the root cause happened to be a lot of stress and at the time. And
Stress
so eventually
and what?
a lot of bad eating and stress,
Okay.
poor eating and lifestyle. And, the stress in my body was kind of the root cause of it. And so what helped a lot was actually natural things like acupuncture, hydrotherapy, colonics, getting water pumped up my butt, kind of like a colonoscopy kind of thing. And it was extremely beneficial. It helped out a lot. And that's what kind of led me into this trajectory is kind of ancient wisdom meshed with this modern science. Like, I'm really big on Western medicine, but it's kind of displayed in the wrong way nowadays. And so I really like this ancient kind of historical healing practices that I enact in a lot of my coaching nowadays.
You're 16 and you have your sister go through all of this. What do you do next? What do you do when you graduate high school?
Yeah, it's a crazy story because it's like one thing led to a next. So I just started tapping into a lot of podcasts, reading a ton of books, just starting to get really like in tune to the world of like not just fitness, because I was really into fitness my entire life, of sports and beginning to lift weights. I started tapping into, okay, the importance of lifting weights, that's awesome, but it's also what's going on outside of that. So sleep, nutrition, all these lifestyle optimization areas. And I also began, in studying a diverse array of different sciences, from biochemistry, biology, anatomy and physiology, which is by far my favorite right there.
Anatomy and physiology.
I love anatomy and physiology. Yeah. And, after going to community college, I went to the University of Arkansas to study kinesiology. I realized I didn't want to do that. I didn't really want to tap into physical therapy as much. And so I was like, okay, what am I more and nutrition stood out. So nutrition is one of the paramount things I'm really, really big on. But on top of that, the whole host of lifestyle optimization routines and modalities. So yeah, I mean, just countless hours of podcasts, reading so many different books, researching a ton. A lot of it actually was gained outside of university.
Sure. I find the same things for me as well, you know. But so you decided maybe not to go the typical become a researcher at a university or a professor of this. You took it to an entrepreneurial standpoint. Did you create your own coaching business? Is that what came next maybe?
Yeah, actually, a lot of it, I started just briefly posting a little bit on social media, many years ago. And then that became like momentum. Like people started reaching out like, oh, I'm kind of interested in what you're posting about with nutrition or lifestyle or fitness. And then it just became a gradual thing where I just kept being like kind of out there posting every once in a while. And, that trajectory just grew over time. And now I'm just like growing an online coaching business. And so I'm really big on personal training in person here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, but also I just have this deep passion in helping men primarily right now optimize their lifestyle and their physique.
That's amazing. I love that story. So why do you normally mention improving the mind, the muscle, and the gut are so important for health and well-being? Why those three things?
Yeah. So like the gut connects to nutrition and what we're kind of our gut instinct in many ways, right? Like what I like to say is almost like our heart center versus going for just the mind. And then we have our mindset, right? Establishing our purpose, our core values, understanding exactly where we want to go in life with our mindset routines. This is everything kind of outside of just muscle and gut, which is just fitness, movement, and nutrition and your gut health. So mindset is kind of encapsulating everything outside of that, which is typically your day-to-day routines and how your mindset is. I'm really big on stoicism with that being said, and it's basically just allowing your stoic philosophy. It's not allowing life to carry the wind, right? It's allowing you to kind of have some control of your emotion trajectory in life, because we have a lot of outside forces, but we also have our own internal fortitude to make the decisions and where we want to go in life. So it's instead of blaming the outside world, it's holding that fortitude within. So I'm really big on that mindset. And the last but not least is the muscle. And so that's prioritizing a fitness routine, building strong, dense muscle so you can support your metabolism, chew off that fat, help you with the physique, but also just feeling strong in your body. So the mindset, gut, and muscle is what I like to say.
Sure. So let's start with one, the mind. So, and you say that getting into a routine, maybe even a morning routine or an evening routine, is useful. Do you want to walk through your morning routine, what you do and why you do it?
Yeah, I love this. So I always start my day, after my alarm goes off, or I wake up naturally, typically around like 7 or so. I'll wake up and I like to just breathe in bed. And typically my cats walk up and they lay around me. It's kind of nice. And I just breathe in bed for around 10 minutes, just kind of conscious breathing, avoiding the phone, avoiding technology, and giving to the outside world. I find that extremely important for most of us nowadays. We tend to give a lot of energy outside of us versus really focusing inward. And having that kind of breath work in the morning, that conscious breathing really helps out a lot. And then I'll kind of shift out of bed and I'll wash my face off, tongue scrape a little bit, take a cold shower, which is wonderful. And yeah, you say, with the tongue scraping.
Yeah, so why?
Tongue scraping is phenomenal for removing a bunch of ama. It's called AMA. And this is based in Ayurvedic text from over 4,000, 5,000 years ago. They would tongue scrape, and it's really important to remove metabolic waste overnight. And this is a lot of mucus production and all that stuff. So instead of swallowing it from food, water, coffee, right in the morning, you scrape it off and remove it from your body. Same goes for at night, before you go to bed. So that's extremely helpful right there. It's an ancient practice. I tongue scrape a lot, or oil pull.
What do you scrape it with?
Yeah, it's just a stainless steel tongue scraper. You can actually get them online. It's pretty awesome. You can get like copper or stainless steel. Those are pretty good. It's really powerful for not just oral health, but also just your immunity, right? Because you're not just ingesting a bunch of metabolic waste instead of scraping it out. So that is awesome right there. I love tongue scraping. I mentioned oil pulling. So coconut oil is great material. So you can swish that in your mouth for a good, anywhere from 5 minutes, 1 minute, 10 minutes. It's really, really powerful for oral health. And then, I'll take a cold shower, do some breath work in there. I'll ground outside while drinking my water and my electrolytes.
Explain what grounding might mean.
Yeah. So just like literally grounding, like if you see a patch of grass or soil or anything right directly into the earth. It's extremely powerful for supporting overall inflammation levels and really allow you to kind of boost your energy, because nowadays we're surrounded by a lot of electromagnetic frequencies coming from the phone, the Wi-Fi, the 5G, the tablet we're on right now, or the laptop. So if you can ground outside, it helps decrease all those electromagnetic frequencies created by man, which agitate our cells. And instead it helps reuptake healthy EMFs. And it's very anti-inflammatory. There's a lot of studies on this coming out. It's pretty cool.
Interesting.
They have like grounding mats and things too. So it's pretty hype and mainstream, slowly getting mainstream. So yeah, grounding out outside barefoot for like 5 to 10 minutes, doing some Qigong, which is this powerful traditional Chinese medicine movement practice. It's Qi means energy in Chinese, and Gong means practice. So it's an energy cultivating practice, just moving your body in very strengthening rhythms. And a lot of martial artists would do it back in the day to cultivate energy and stillness. And that's extremely powerful. So I do that for a period of time, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes while drinking my water, with the electrolytes I mentioned to get the hydration, or some salt. Apple cider vinegar is really good. So I add that to it. Get some sunlight. Yeah, it's good for the gut. It's good for your metabolism. Really supporting blood sugar. Apple cider vinegar is insanely cheap, and it's extremely for most people.
Sure.
And then, sunlight is key. If you can wake up and get sunlight first thing in the morning, it's so powerful, Harley, just to be able to reset your circadian clock and sleep better at night, is actually just getting sunlight on your face and on your skin as much as possible. So big fan. That's kind of like my typical morning routine. I'll journal or read occasionally, and usually practice that mindfulness and movement and gut, right? It's all of them.
Wow. That's incredible. And first, let's talk a little bit about the cold shower. I like that as well, but I don't do it right in the morning. I do it after my workout, kind of midday, and it kind of gives me a boost in energy. But do you feel like it helps, decrease anxiety or depression, or do you feel just like a new person after that?
Yeah, it's definitely like a rebirth kind of thing. You feel just amazing, especially if you tie in the breath with it. As Wim Hof has really coined that whole idea of tying in the cold, that adrenaline response, which is very healing, to that exacerbation of just oxygen, is so cool. Yeah, definitely decrease anxiety and all of that.
Sure. And is the Wim Hof method, how does one do that? I'm not even certain.
Yeah, so basically a simple way to think about it is it's about 30 breaths. So it'll be in, and you tighten up and try to expand your chest and belly, and then you'll release and relax your body. And so it's kind of like hyperventilating in a sense. And you'll just do that for about 30 breaths. So that's one. And then you continue to do that for 30. And then on the 30th breath, typically inhaling completely and holding the inhale, or exhaling completely and holding the exhale. Some people do it differently. And then you'll hold the breath for as long as you possibly can. So I usually like to actually exhale completely, hold it for as long as I can, meditate in that quietness. And then I'll be, taking the time to inhale and hold that breath again. And that's kind of the Wim Hof routine right there.
Sure. And what temperature of water would you say you're showering in?
Man, during the summer months, it's pretty warm. So yeah. I wouldn't even consider it a cold shower. I consider it more of a lukewarm shower.
Yep. Understandable.
But yeah, during summer, it's definitely not as fun, but it's more fun in different ways, that it's not as intense, but
sure.
Wintertime's great for sure.
Yep. Gotcha. And so what books and what podcasts specifically got you really interested in this?
Yeah. So like resources and yeah. I would say Ben Greenfield Fitness is huge. Dave Asprey, really big on Sean Stevenson. He's an incredible pioneer in the field of nutrition specifically. Aaron Alexander is a movement specialist. He is awesome in that inner circle. Aubrey Marcus is awesome too. I just love Aubrey Marcus. There's a whole slew of these interconnections in that field. Dr. Christian Gonzalez is really cool. He's a naturopath in California. Those are some podcast guys I really enjoy. And then I would, Andrew Huberman lately has been lighting me up. Gotta love that guy. Andrew Huberman has a lot of science-based, applicable stuff on his podcast. And when it comes to books, a lot of those guys I just mentioned have their own books as well. So I would just highly recommend people just delve into the world by starting off listening, maybe listen to some ebooks and then just really go full throttle on some of these resources. All this stuff is free out on the internet. It's just like, you don't necessarily need a degree to be able to do stuff.
No, yeah, I truly agree. I actually 10 minutes before starting this, I was listening to the Huberman and this guy named Ido Portal.
Oh, he's amazing.
Like,
he's inspired me quite a bit. Yeah. Crazy movement specialist. Yeah, he does a lot of intricate, I don't even like calling it animal flow, but I mean, it's kind of like that. It's more just like embodiment of your total human optimization of movement. Like, it's really wild. Very intricate movement patterns, things that I think a lot of us could benefit from.
Yeah, I just had opened up, scratched the surface by starting that. I was like, wow, interesting. But
awesome.
And what nootropics would you recommend? Or what supplements, or, you said apple cider vinegar, which is kind of a supplement. You might have mentioned a few other things. You did quite a few things in your morning routine, but what other supplements?
Man, I would say for nootropics specifically, sleep, sleep and sunlight, man. Like, those are the best brain boosters out there. And then, of course, nutrition, eating healthy nutrition, but wanting to take supplements to boost, is it brain health specifically you're curious about?
Sure.
Yeah, we could talk about that. So I would say magnesium. I mean, that's overall holistic based supplement, and just being able to address over 400 enzymatic reactions in the human body. Statistically, 70% plus of humans nowadays are deficient in magnesium, and it's an essential mineral, macro mineral that really is a foundation to bone mineral concentration and density, foundation to anxiety, serotonin, muscle relaxation, and the firing of your nervous system. Like, it's really wild. So magnesium is definitely a must. I find that everyone could benefit from that. And then I would say, if we're going to get more specific with nootropics, there's this company, Nootopia, I've been big on, Nootopia. And it's a branch off of actually one of my favorite magnesium companies, of Biooptimizers. And they got these custom nootropics that are just so powerful for not kind of blunting your emotions. Like, there's a lot of Adderall use and stuff out there, nothing against it, but I think it's overused typically. And it tends to, it's been shown to really blunt your mood in many ways, or your personality in many facets. I mean, it's a form of amphetamines in many ways. So I strongly recommend people tap into other ways to boost brain power, like the sleep, the sunlight, the exercise, the nutrition, and address it through that. If you feel like you have ADD, ADHD, or get Nootopia, it's more of a natural solution to firing up your brain in a custom way through a questionnaire.
Interesting. I might have to look that up and try it out.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
And let's go back to the sunlight. I think that's the thing that drew me to your page the most. You explaining to get outside, go barefoot, take your shirt off, get sun on your face, etc. I'm a person who falls into the habit. I work from my computer. I do school from here. I work on this podcast from inside, and I don't get outside much. And over the past 5 days, I actually started a little routine where right when I wake up, I go out onto the outside with a book. I meditate first, and then I read a book out in the sun for a while. And I felt like I could get to bed earlier those nights, and I slept better those nights. And I felt almost more ready to face the day. Like, it put me in a better mood. And I'm glad I took that advice, because I was like, I feel like I work out and I try to eat healthfully and all kinds of things, but I'm missing out on something so important, which is the sun. And it's like, for the first time in human history, we've been sheltered in these boxes all day with screens instead of real light. And I'm like, man, I really need to utilize it. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the sun is so important for humans?
Yeah, I mean, just think about how, like, all energy on Earth, we got the trees, the plants, the fungus, we have lizards, amphibians, we have all the things you can imagine, bears, like all the crazy stuff. All of that quite literally revolves around the sun. I mean, literally, we just discovered over the past, I don't know how many years, like 2,000 years or something random, we discovered revolve around the sun, right? There was like that big ancestral term where we're no longer thinking that everything revolves around Earth. Instead, we're like, oh, wow, we actually circulate the sun. So the sun is just this massive power of energy. And it's literally, we have this idea that, like, plants are photosynthetic, right? They go through photosynthesis. 1 and 2, and they create energy through that. Well, that's not true. Humans are photosynthetic. Like we literally wouldn't survive without the sun. Melanin production, which is what makes our skin darker, the more energy or ATP we can produce, the more we can combat, not the more of it, that's a broad statement, but a certain level of that produced by sun exposure can support us in our overall health and immunity. So, especially, I'm big on the whole naked and nude sunbathing, especially. A lot of us are getting sun like just on our forearms, just on our face, and maybe not even on our legs. Like, in all honesty, if we can get that on our chest, our back, and even for guys on our our testicles, get it on the women, like get it all down there, everything. Like our ancestors, and they didn't care about being naked at all, and our tribes and stuff. So just over the turn of the century, we became clothed, and that was just over the past like 400 years or something. Like I don't even know, something recently. So it's really become something interesting where we're kind of scared of the sun, and due to the market of sunscreen. So if we aren't getting adequate sun exposure, we're going to slowly decrease our immunity, our immune system. We're going to decrease our vitality, our hormones, right? So vitamin D3 is synthesized through exposure. We can't just supplement our way out of it. We have to get sun through it. So that causes a cascade of conversion processes to improve testosterone, to improve hormone levels in women, right? And so it also creates this serotonin. Like when you are in the sun, you know how you feel kind of warm, Harley, and you're just like, damn, I feel kind of good after just like 5 minutes of sun exposure.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a ton of benefits from the sun, a lot that I still don't even fully understand, but I guess the moral of this is I need to get outside more. It's a simple answer, so I just got to get moving. But you mentioned something about sunning testicles or sunning genitals. Why this? I've seen this maybe a few different people say this, and I'm not certain why. What are the benefits? What are maybe even the risks?
Yeah. So risks include trying to do it midday sun where it's extremely high UV and you're doing it for long bouts of time. That is just not a good idea. First off, the testicles hold sperm. So sperm is very sensitive to heat. And so it could actually decrease testosterone, cause issues with testosterone and sperm infertility. So try to find a time in the day where you can get, 5 to 10 or whatever minutes and be comfortable with listening to your body, right? I'm not telling anyone to do this, but it's something to explore, right? So do it at your own caution, but find a time of day where the UV is a little bit lower. So this could be like 10 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever, 7 a.m. even, where it's a little bit lower UV index and it's more higher in the infrared. The infrared can be very beneficial for what we're talking about with boosting testosterone and energy. So, some of the ways that it could improve, it's kind of unknown why it may improve testosterone. It's not 100% sure, or improve hormones. One of the main things I hypothesize is that you're exposing more skin to the sun. So therefore that can up level testosterone, or it could be directly influenced through that particular area. Like you're straight up increasing nitric oxide. So when you expose the skin to the sun, it increases the amount of blood flow or nitric oxide through your body. And so that can enhance testosterone and hormones in many ways. And if you do it especially around that area, you're going to totally influence the amount of circulation through that area, which may therefore improve, certain areas with the hormones. So it's kind of hard to say, Harley, but there's a variety of reasons why. Increased vitamin D3 synthesis from more skin exposure, or perhaps relating to that specific area, it might just increase the blood flow, and there's many facets to why.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to give it a try. I've tried it one time, but I
find a secret spot.
I did it kind of midday, and I was like, oh man, I can't go very long. So that's great to know.
There's nothing wrong with it midday. You just got less is more in a way, right? Or
sure.
Yeah.
So I've seen some people talk about red light therapy. I'm not sure if you're a person who recommends that or who has looked into that. Mm-hmm. What's your opinion of that?
I love it. I think it's powerful. I used to do it all the time. I used to work at a clinic that is a biohacking studio, and it had a photobiomodulation is a fancy word for it. Photo meaning light, biology, and modulation. It modulates your biochemistry. So yeah, red light therapy is there's a lot of research on it, and it actually is just corresponding to the idea of sunning outside, naked is the same idea. It has the near infrared wavelengths, which can, really support overall circulation, healing. And also when you get that area down there, it's been shown to increase testosterone by like 200% in 10 minutes. So it's pretty cool.
Interesting. Tell me about this biohacking facility. What did you learn? What did you do?
Yeah. So during my college years, I worked there, and it was really cool. It was called Restore, and it had, red light therapy, photobiomodulation, infrared sauna, similar wavelengths, similar to the red light therapy. And so that's really healing right there, just getting a deep detoxification of sweat. Contains cryotherapy, which is basically this chamber you step into that has nitrogen gas spew out of it, and you're in it for around 3 minutes. It's basically just cold therapy with nitrogen gas. You don't breathe in the air, your head's above it, but it does get your body really cold with the gas. I personally am a bigger fan of water exposure. It just gets you way colder. So if you can submerge in water, that's the most optimal. Cold showers are okay too. Cryotherapy is okay with the nitrogen gas. Not a huge fan. Personally, I like to get that instant shock with the cold and submerging in it, like ice baths. But it's very beneficial for inflammation, supports adrenaline, your dopamine. It's so many benefits to it, tightening your skin, collagen. And then you have at this facility a HBOT machine, so hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It's basically a chamber you step into that's pressure sealed, and it increases the amount of oxygen pressuring into your body. So it feels like you're kind of going on a flight. The pressure kind of pops your ear, and you're in it for about an hour, hour and a half. It basically increases oxygenation throughout the body, which is extremely healing for brain trauma, traumatic brain injuries. It could be just for any injury, or it could just be for overall optimizing your health. And then there was nutritional IVs, and those are really, really helpful in different ways. Hydration. There's a lot of different complexes you can get injected. Like one of my favorites is what am I? I'm blanking on it. ATP. It enhances ATP production. And for some reason, I'm blanking out, but it's the ATP is basically your energy precursor. And if you can increase that, it's great for longevity in many facets. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of all the different things they had available there. It's really cool.
Have you extended your use of those after you've left the biohacking?
Do you
have a sauna? Do you do an ice bath typically?
So I have a infrared. I just got it recently. Actually, it's Prasanna Health. It's really awesome. Prasanna, and it's this really powerful. It's very affordable too for a home sauna. It's mobile. It's basically like a sleeping bag, and it has 0 EMFs, like we were talking about earlier. Electromagnetic frequencies basically can cause a lot of issues coming from your phone, 5G and all that. So it has 0 EMFs. A lot of saunas nowadays magnify EMFs. So you're basically in a microwave in a sense. So it's really harmful to our health because it kind of agitates our cells, right? This is just stuff that's new. Like over the past 20, 30 years, we had all this technology come out. This is just foreign, right? This is not normal. So this little sauna is basically like it's basically like a sleeping bag, and you go inside of it and it heats it up and emits this infrared wavelengths to around 170 degrees, and it's a deep sweat. I'll probably do it after this, to be honest. But
wow, that's interesting. Where does all that sweat go? Does it just stay in?
It stays in there, so you got to wipe it when you're done. But it's an easy cleaning process. You just unzip it and wipe it down, or bring a towel in with you. Right, super easy. So.
Man, that sounds interesting. I might actually look that up and get one for myself. I love
highly
saunas.
recommend it. Dude, you're going to love it, man. And it's portable, so you can literally travel with it in a bag.
That is revolutionary.
Right?
Wow. I love that.
But yeah, stemming off that, I'm bound to get a red light therapy machine myself. And I think the basics are to start with, biohacking is cool. I'm a big fan of it, but I'm bigger on bioharmonizing, right? Instead of trying to hack your way out of life and like what it's providing in nature, just harmonize with it, right? I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, I'd recommend, if anyone's interested in these kind of tech and stuff, sauna is great and stuff, cold therapy and stuff, but just fine tune with what nature provides first: grounding outside barefoot, sun, sleep, nutrition, and movement. Like, just start with the basics, then you can start working on these biohacks.
That's great advice. And so let's talk about foods. What foods are considered ancestral? I've heard maybe you say on some of your videos, eat an ancestral diet. And I've heard people who are carnivore. I've heard people who are vegan. I lean towards the carnivore side, but I also like eating vegetables and fruits and whatnot. What would you say is the optimal diet? And I know diet is complicated because, humans are somewhat different, but what's your take on this?
Yeah. And just going off of that, humans are different, right? Bio-individuality is the first things first. Everyone has a unique set of genes. Everyone has a unique background and where their family and lineage is from. So for instance, my history is from the Netherlands. It's from a colder climate, less sun in a different way. I mean, there was sun, but a colder climate, and we typically had access to a lot more grounding meats and saturated fats, and we would have a variety of vegetables as well, roots and tubers and things. So I do incredibly well having a lot of bone broth, having a lot of organ meats, having a lot of high fats with coconut oil, butter, ghee, olive oil, and all that good stuff. And then I also throw in a ton of vegetables. So the most optimal diet is what's good for you. That's for one. But I strongly believe most people do well with an omnivorous diet, not getting dogmatic about plant-based is the way or carnivore is the way. Ancestrally speaking, our ancestors didn't walk around and say, hey, I'm going to choose not to eat plants to survive. And then all their tribal guys would be like, hey, you're going to starve. Like, let's eat some of this. Let's eat some of these sweet potatoes. Like, let's cook these up. No, I'm good. I'd rather not. I'm a carnivore or whatever it may be. It could be back and forth, right? We didn't think like that in a logical standpoint. Nowadays, we're so logical about it instead of listening to our body and how it feels. And our tribe, our ancestors would think not as logically, but heart-centered. They'd be like, man, I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat this. I feel good from eating that. I'm going to eat more of that. So they would kill a lot of animals. They would, that's so nutrient dense, right? Eating organs, and they would eat meat, and they would eat all the bones and make bone broth and the collagen coming from that and all these essential nutrients. And a lot of vegans I've had arguments with. I've been a vegan for 4 months just to test it out and see how I felt. I didn't do well with it. A lot of vegans will argue, well, you can get everything you need from plants. And that is just simply not true. Like, can you get carnitine? Can you get creatine? Can you get taurine? Can you get B12? Can you get essential amino acids from a piece of beans or some beans? No, you can't. You have to get a mixed variety, and you have to be very intellectual about it. Going back to the logical thing, our ancestors weren't like restrictive on like, let's be just plant-based. Some tribes around the world, yes, they were predominantly plant-based, but that's just not optimal. They actually have issues with they have goiters growing on their neck and hypothyroidism because they're not getting essential nutrients from to help their thyroid out, And so I think if we get too strict about it, I'm a very easygoing, I've had clients that want to eat a certain way, and I just, I respect that. It's awesome, but let's try to get a mix of vegetables and fruit and meat as much as we can throughout our lifetime. Not for long bouts of time restricting anything. So that's the most optimal diet, if that answers that.
Dang, I like that a lot. I agree with that. I feel like sometimes people are so dogmatic one side or the other, and I'm like, you're forgetting to recognize that there's nuances to life, and everyone's complicated and different, and you can get so many different benefits from all different kinds of foods. But there's one thing I've heard online quite a lot recently about seed oils. I've heard a lot of people say, avoid seed oils, and that might be a reason why we are so inflamed, and that might also be a reason why we need sunscreen or think we need it. Or have you I've heard you talk about this before. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, it's a complex subject in a way, but it's very simple at the same time. So basically, just to start off history-wise, back in like the 1940s, during the Industrial Revolution after World War II ended, we had this brilliant idea to start consuming something that was initially made for machinery. We would use corn, soy, canola, which is actually called rapeseed, funny enough. So that's a sign that you probably don't want to eat if it's called rapeseed. But anyways, we would use corn, soy, and all this stuff for industrial seed oils. It was industrially used. It was used for lubrication and machinery. Then this guy came up with this idea of like, hey, why don't we put this in our food? And so that's when we kind of shifted into more of this vegetable oil lifestyle. And now vegetables oils aren't innately bad. What's bad is the oxidation process through it. It's the GMO'd out nature of it. It's they're just so oxidized. And what that means is they basically increase free radicals in the body when you consume them, something you can't reverse, right? So these industrial seed oils began becoming very prominent in the industry. And then we started saying, oh, like the American Heart Disease Association or American Heart Association, all this stuff started saying like, this stuff's good for you. It's essential for your health. You need these polyunsaturated omega-6s to operate well. Omega-6s are essential, but not in the degree we are eating them now. Americans typically have a 20-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to 3. That is extremely inflammatory. Think of omega-6s as pro-inflammatory, so they increase inflammation, and omega-3s as anti-inflammatory. So we need a divine balance between the two. A 4-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to 3 is great. If you can get that kind of 4-to-1 ratio, that's awesome. And the thing is, we're just eating them in excess because they're in everything nowadays. You will see sunflower on every packaged food. You will see canola. You'll see it's not sunflower, safflower. You will see soybean, and like mayo and things. It's just such a problem because they're tasteless, they're odorless. You don't see them until you feel them. And then after a long period of time, your joints will start hurting. You'll get headaches. You'll start gaining weight and having metabolic disorder. You'll have insulin resistance. It's just like the imbalanced part of it. So if we start shifting our oils into more of these omega-3s from fatty cold water fish, sardines are my favorite. If we start eating more avocado that has monounsaturated fats, not as much polyunsaturated fats, more olive oil. If we start eating more ghee and healthy saturated fats, which has been totally shut down, saturated fats lately. You got a question.
What is ghee?
Yeah, ghee, Ghee. It's basically butter that is clarified. So it's just butter that has been heated up to a certain temperature, and then you basically strip away the milk solids. So it's more like pure butter in a sense. But it's ancient. It's ancient from like India.
Huh. Yeah, it's interesting. I heard someone say, yeah, if you're walking into a grocery store and you're thinking of picking up food that comes in a box or a bag, typically there's going to be some seed oils in there. Just check the back. And I was so astounded. Literally every box, this whole aisle, it seemed as if there was one of those 4 or 5 oils, seed oils that don't seem to be as healthy as avocado or olive and like those industrial seed oils. And it just kind of blew my mind. And I looked in my pantry and I was like, I have granola bars, Ritz crackers, all kind tortilla chips, whatever. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, this is interesting. Should I eat these anymore or not? And I don't know. Do you try to avoid them entirely, or are you just more intentional about, hey, maybe I'm trying to avoid,
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm at the point now where literally I have zero cravings for food. I say zero, but like I would say 1% of the time when I have cravings, I can easily satiate it from like a couple of dates, right? Or some kind of sweet little keto meal or something. Like I'm not going to have like I have a really good relationship with food right now. And that's why I help people with it. Cause I've gone through some crazy experiences with it where I would binge eat at night, living at my parents at the time. And I would have like kind of a bulimia thing for a while where I would just puke after eating so much food. Like, yeah, it was pretty rough. I would just gorge down a whole bag of like Ritz, like you're saying, like just a whole bag of it. And then I just feel so nauseous and I debate on going upstairs where our bathroom was. And I was like, man, do I just puke or do I sleep this off? A lot of times I would sleep it off, wake up just totally like hungover from food. So I'm like totally open to sharing this stuff because I think now I'm at the point now where I'm so comfortable with food. And I think it's okay to buy stuff like that, but just be careful because I always have the perspective of the greater good and how we have this impact of, if we buy this and support this company, you're really just voting with your dollar to make more of that food. And that is destroying the planet and that's destroying our health, right? So big names like Kraft, like Nestle and all these other companies, unfortunately, they're the biggest contributors to plastic production and they're the biggest contributors to destroying the nature, right? And so I strongly believe in sustainability and taking those eco-conscious steps. And I think that's the biggest thing that comes to mind beyond our own vessel. But we can't think about the planet and the greater good until we think about our own health first. So if people start working on getting healthy by trying to limit those foods as best you can, that'd be great. First steps is don't buy it and it won't be in the house and then you won't eat it. That's the best thing you can do. Or find replacements. It's not like it has to be super healthy. Eating healthy is not boring, right? It's just how you do it. It's not about restrictive eating. It's about just eating flexible and having fun with it.
Sure. So explain why you might eat dates. I've never really had any. I'm just...
Well, there's actually a lot of crazy literature, especially with halawi dates, a specific type of date. It's halawi. Yeah, they have Deglay Noir. They have Medjool. These are all great varieties, but dates are powerful, man. I mean, just having like 3 dates a day is really, really powerful for cholesterol. It's great for, it's going to support you, to be honest, with digestion in many ways. It's a great source of fiber, and there's a ton of antioxidants that are extremely longevity related too. So overall, it doesn't spike blood sugar that much, although it's very sweet. There's actually a lot of studies showing that dates can actually lower blood sugar. Freaking crazy. So wow, even though right. So it's due to the fiber and the antioxidants. It kind of wards off the inflammation from sugar. So I'm a huge fan of dates. I eat them quite regularly as a good snack.
It's a great idea. The cocoa nibs, like you mentioned before.
Yeah,
The
cacao. Remember, no
yeah,
cocoa.
Thank you. Cacao nibs.
Cacao is like the whole form of cocoa for you guys, and cocoa is kind of like the processed version of cacao.
Okay,
Chocolate.
Got it. And interesting. So I've also heard people talk about eating grass-fed meat or eating eggs that, the chicken was free range, or maybe instead of a factory farm, supporting that factory farm, supporting a community farm, that's family owned in some sense. Do you engage in that activity? Where do you get your meats? What is your opinion of all this?
Yeah. So when it comes to overall meat, I like to look at it as the energetic currency of it, right? Where is this animal being resourced and how is this animal's life? A lot of it is assumption based, unless you get a good resource or local source from a farm around your area, which is what I recommend first. But you can also find great companies like Thousand Hills. Thousand Hills is available at like natural grocers typically. But like really focusing on the sustainable aspect is kind of like what I was talking about eco-consciousness. Focus on like, how does this impact the world? Well, for one, you're not supporting an industry that's pretty disgusting with factory farming. Like, some of the destruction and how they treat these animals is really sad. And that's why a lot of people do go vegan, because they don't want to support that. But that's the misunderstanding. That is not solving the problem. That's not solving the problem. Solving the problem is actually investing in meat that is from a ethical source, right? So animals that were grass fed, like cows, like that's how they were created by God. That's how they were created by nature, is to eat grass, not to eat corn, soy, and all this stuff in a small box and being pushed around and injected with antibiotics and all of that. It's really sad. So, I'm a big fan of just supporting what Mother Nature provides, and that's grass-fed animals. They're roaming free on the land, and then they're butchered and given, the respect into our bodies, right? That divine energy of meat turns into our divine energy. So think of like all the sadness and despair stored in factory farm meat on Walmart shelves. That is being converted into your body little by little. That's epigenetics right there. Epigenetics is like basically everything epigenetics is basically everything you're doing on a daily basis with your lifestyle that impacts your genes. So this could be, okay, I choose to work out regularly. Awesome. That's improving my genes so my kids will be stronger. Or, oh, I'm eating healthier. I'm eating better meat. Wow, that's making my genes stronger. So now my kids will live longer and live healthier, and they won't have as many immune system issues. So I love the new thing with epigenetics, but it branches right into that. So yeah, support sustainable meat.
Sure. So do you go to a farm nearby in your community and just...
Yeah. Here in Arkansas, there's a lot of good places. So I get like beef heart and beef liver every couple of weeks. Right now I have like 5 pounds of each in my fridge. I eat beef heart and liver quite regularly.
Why?
But why? Well, organ meats in general are loaded up with a ton of nutrients, way more than regular flesh, right? And if we look ancestrally too, like if we killed an animal, we wouldn't just be like, hey, I'm tossing away the organs. We're like, no, we're eating everything we can. And we would be like, wow, this pumping heart in the center of this animal, like they would pull that out and they would eat it raw or whatever. And it's just chock full of nutrients that are not found in the meat, like CoQ10. And it's really good for your heart, actually. It's a special like antioxidant. So that's in beef heart in abundance. Beef liver is chock full of vitamin A, a lot of different nutrients and micronutrients and, vitamins and minerals. And it's just choline. It's like the richest source of choline, which is great for your brain. And so overall, I mean, if you can get more organ meats on a daily/weekly basis, that's just so beneficial. I just recommend getting at least like 4 ounces of liver a week if you can, or even heart.
Interesting. I've heard of supplements that have organs in them, liver, heart, etc. Do you recommend those, or do you recommend going straight to a raw liver?
Yeah. And I don't even say raw is necessarily the answer. I'd say
Okay.
cook it still.
Okay, cook
raw
it.
is kind of the hype nowadays. I think everyone's just like, eat your raw liver. It's like, well, there's still this, if you're not getting it from a really good source and it's not necessarily fresh and it's kind of frozen, there's this potential in having foodborne illness. And also if you think about like heart, like parasites tend to go to the heart. Like you hear like parasites in the hearts of animals and stuff. Well, that's a big part of it. Like I think like heartworms, right? You've heard of heartworms, like animals get that. It's literally worms in your heart of these animals. Like it's scary. So that can happen in these animals. So you can possibly get parasites, you can possibly get a bacterial infection. So I recommend cooking your food. Like I strongly believe in that. You can have it somewhat medium rare, but just try to cook off some of that. But anyways, going off of that, where are we going with the organs again?
The supplement organs.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, those are great. Organ supplements are great. They're desiccated, they're freeze dried. However, it's not the whole form, right? It's still a supplement. So it's not whole foods based. So whole foods based is best in many ways.
What about like liver crisps? Have you ever heard of Carnivore Aurelius?
Yeah. I haven't tried them yet. I think they're great. I mean, that's awesome. That's a convenient way for people and it's tasty. There's this company called Carnivore Snacks that has incredible these chips and stuff that are just literally just salt and meat. It's amazing. And they have like ribeye, so delicious, and these pork loin. It's awesome. It's actually on my website. They have incredible stuff.
That's amazing. I have two and a half pages of notes so far. This is amazing. Let's switch over to sunscreen. Let's talk more about that. I've heard some people say I reject sunscreen, but I'm not certain where the balance is. That seems pretty dogmatic to say no sunscreen or it's all bad. Or what's your opinion now on this?
Yeah, sunscreen is not all bad. I made a post. I got pretty big, and I was just trying to be kind of joking in a way. People took it really serious, but I think sunscreen is bad for the typical sunscreen like Banana Boat and Johnson & Johnson. Those ones, they've been proven to cause cancer. Standard sunscreen is crap. If you want to get sunscreen, get mineral based, like zinc based. That is going to be way better for you. It doesn't have all these cancer causing substances in them. So sunscreen is not good. And when you put it in the sun and combine these chemicals in the sun, you're literally just like cooking your body from the outside in. Like it's scary. So, I mean, you're putting your body in UV, which is going to amplify the cancer compounds too. So I don't like sunscreen. I personally never wear it. If I do, I'll wear like beef tallow, or I'll put like, I'll straight up put like beef fat on my body, and it has like 10 SPF or something. And then coconut oil can actually have some SPF as well. Olive oil has like 5 to 10. So that's helpful. Or you can simply just get sunscreen from within your gut.
Explain that.
Yeah, load up on antioxidants, load up on all the nutrient dense foods with antioxidants like blueberries and the dates we brought up earlier. Load up on an anti-inflammatory diet without seed oils, right? We talked about seed oils. That will help out with not getting burnt, because if you're already inflamed or oxidized, the sun's going to make that worse.
It's great to hear. I just ate a whole package of blueberries earlier, so I check one.
There you go.
And let's talk about 5G radiation. Well, let's first talk about this, tech-driven life versus a nature-driven life. Like, how often or how much of your day do you spend in tech, and how much of your day do you spend outside in nature?
That's a good question. It's a good balance of both, right? And that's what I think we should be doing in this modern era if we want to succeed mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, all that stuff. I strongly love tech. I absolutely love it. That's my living, right? But I also love nature, and I love that balance of the two. So I typically, like, we're on a podcast right now, we're on these screens and everything. I really make sure. So like right now I'm in my garage. I set up my laptop and work from my laptop in my garage facing outward, and I can look up, see trees. I can see the sky right in front of me. I get natural light all day long, and I'm sitting on the floor, which is ancestrally speaking helpful too for your hips and mobility. So I have a floor desk. I think a standing desk is great too, but the floor desk is great because you can constantly shift and move and open the hips and get in all these different positions like yoga. And that can be extremely helpful. But going off of that, trying to integrate nature into your tech life is great. So you can take periodic breaks every 30 minutes to an hour, get outside, ground, get some sunlight, move your body. There you go. There's your 5-minute break. You just rebounded now. Now you're not just sucked into the matrix all day long for 8 hours straight, right? So it's not that you don't need tech. It's just make your life more nature driven, right? Make it more nature bound versus tech bound. So yeah, going off your question, probably half and half. So I'll have like breaks throughout the day where I'm on calls for an hour, get up for 30 minutes to an hour, and I'll just be moving. I'll get outside in the sun. I'll get a workout in, make sure that I'm outside as much as possible.
Yeah. When we had a call before this podcast, you were outside walking. I was like, man, he's practicing what he preaches.
Yeah,
nature and tech
that's one of my
combined.
biggest things, man. I mean, practicing what I preach, or integrity, living with integrity, right? Not just speaking words and not doing it. To know and not do is to never truly know, right? And I've been that way for a good part of my life, where I'm saying things and kind of having this ego blast, but not really doing it. And then it eats you alive slowly. So I highly recommend people just abide by their truth and try to live their truth, right? If they have a thought and they're saying it a lot, well, just do it. Stop trying to be something you're not. So I'm really big on practicing what you preach. That's one thing I will always try to do. If I put something out on the internet, I'm going to be living it, right? I'm not going to be just trying to be that guy who's like, do this, but I'm not doing it, right?
Sure. Yeah, I have to do a similar thing with this podcast, talk about something or say that I'm going to do something. And there's people that hold me accountable, or even just I think I'm holding myself accountable. I'm
Right.
forcing myself. But yeah, I understand what you mean. And what would you recommend to someone who might not be optimizing their health? They might be falling into a slump, where they might have become overweight, depressed, whatnot. What do you think are the first steps? Sleep, you might say, but what steps would you recommend for someone who is nervous to jump into this whole fitness world? Because some people aren't at the stage where you've done it for so long and now it feels so natural.
Yeah, what comes up for me immediately is asking for help doesn't make you weak. It shows courage and strength. So like literally just get your hand out there and start picking up other people's hands, and like they're going to help you out. Like I used to think I could do it all myself until I hired a business coach, which taught me so many things, right? Or I decided to go through the Czech Academy, which taught me a lot, or got a nutrition degree. Like I can't do this alone. I can do any of this alone. And I think we need to understand none of us can do it alone. I think we're in this go, go, go masculine drive mindset, both men and women nowadays, that we think we can do it alone, but that's just not the case. Networking is key. Asking for help is key. So first things first, see whether or not you can really do this alone. Do you really want to spend the time and energy trying to figure it all out yourself? Or do you want to go to someone who has done it themselves and they can give you all the answers and the keys right away? So I think that's one of the number one things.
Having the humility to recognize, I could be improved. My actions right now are not a reflection of where I want to be. And
humility is a good one. Yeah.
So yeah, I love what you're doing with this wellness coach, and even the free just content that you're putting out. I'm a huge fan of. I saw your content explode over Instagram over the past few months, and I'm glad that we got to have this discussion. I feel like we covered the mind, muscle, and gut pretty heavily in that time. And
I would say so.
I learned a ton and got all kinds of different references, and I hope the people listening did as well. And any closing thoughts before we end this?
Man, well, I would say number one thing you guys can start focusing on is really just taking advantage of the core things in front of you, right? Which is what I said earlier. Don't focus on supplements to cure all. Don't focus on all these things outside of you. First, tap into that internal energy, and ask yourself, what can I start addressing now that is simple, challenging, but effective? Because if it's not challenging, what's the point of doing it? It's going to be challenging. So this could be your sleep. Get your sleep schedule right. This could be, I haven't been moving. I've been sedentary. Okay, start walking more. This could be, oh man, I've been snacking on the wrong foods. Okay, we'll just start incorporating more foods that are healthy, or getting rid of the ones that are bad. I haven't been outside as much. Well, start walking outside. There you got two birds with one stone right there. You're moving more and you're outside. So I think it's really important to ask, what can I do now? What do I have control over now? And what do I not have control over? I think it's the number one thing. I guess the Stoic philosophy, that's the basics of Stoicism too, is like asking, what do I have control over? What do I not have control over? If you don't have control over a situation or experience, well, let it go. That's the freedom aspect of that. I don't have control. Whew, that feels good. I don't have control. I can let that go. If you do have control, oh, that's awesome. I have control over this. Let's do something about it. So that's the biggest takeaway right there, I think.
I love that. I love how you tie the Stoicism and health and lifestyle, because I feel like Stoicism, it is so interconnected in all that we do. And, it's like, I'll say this, there's this play called The Tea Party, or it's a novel or a short story about this woman who goes to a counselor and says, man, I'm struggling, but I hope it's my fault and not the world's fault. Because if it is the world's fault, I'm completely screwed. But if it is my fault, I have the control to better my situation. And I love how you said there's some things that you do have the control over and you should take action on, but also the other side, there are things that you can't control, and taking a breath and recognizing that is useful. And I see that you do all kinds of breath work, and so I'm sure you're pretty centered. Or at
I
least
try
you
my
try
best.
to be. You try to be.
Yeah, we're all
That's a
crazy
goal
deep
for all
down.
of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. I learned so much, and hopefully we can do this again. And I'm going to keep in touch because it's a valuable resource. You are.
Heck yeah, Harley. Well, I appreciate it, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to the Harley Sealbinder podcast, where deep questions are asked. If this podcast impacted you positively, be sure to share it with your friends, for I'm sure it will impact them positively as well. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.